Achilles. Here's Pan in Chronicles of Narnia. Here's Pan in Family Guy. And here's Peter Pan playing the pan flute. That's what gives his whole identity away as being Pan. He's a devil. And he's represented as a devil. And what's really interesting is now it starts to make sense why Peter Pan has this theme of going to a place where you never have to grow old, you never have to do anything. I mean, that's very devilish in its thinking. Now this genie that little Aladdin carried around with him, right? Remember he was this shape-shifting genie that would turn into all these different animals and various different forms, right, in the movie? So guess what I did? As a good scholarly little student, I said, I wonder where the word genie comes from. So I go to dictionary.com and I go, hey, the root word for genie comes from the word jinn. And listen to the definition of this. Genie, or jinn, is any class of spirits lower than the angels, capable of appearing in human and animal forms and influencing humankind for either good or evil. The root of the word comes from demon. So naturally, of course, come on. Peter Pan gets his powers from this demon who makes him rich and all these different things. And if you speak to people in India and you're like, what is a genie? They'll tell you it's a jinn. It's an old folklore of these devils that lived in these boxes. So, I don't know, for some reason, I feel bad. Let's see if we can pick it forward. There we go. So here you have a genie, you have a devil, and you have a little red dragon. And these are all the protagonists. These are all the heroes of the story. So do you see where I'm going with this? They keep remaking Lucifer, or a devil, or a demon as the hero, as the hero, as the hero. And they're fighting against the other side. And so as these little kids, you got to think, movies and filmmakers are just like pastors and ministers. Pastors and ministers, what they're trying to do is plant seeds into your mind that the Holy Spirit can water. Well, guess what? So are they. They're planting ideas and thoughts. And if you see some of our other presentations, you'll see some of the theology and some of the religions that a lot of these filmmakers make. They put them into their movies because they're excited about it. Just like a Christian would be excited about telling you about Jesus. They're excited to tell you about their gods or whomever that is. Now, how about Pocahontas? When Pocahontas speaks to the tree for the very first time, she's asking for wisdom on what to do in the relationship. And notice this. You see a pattern here. Why does Walt Disney always have a relationship with a female, a woman, that is supposed to marry this guy, but her heart doesn't want to marry that prince guy because the law tells her to marry the prince. She wants to marry the thief, or she wants to marry the guy that's the most unlikely guy. It's a very common thing that Walt Disney does all the time. So listen to that theme and think about what this truly entails.
Grandmother Willow, I need to talk to you.
Child, I was hoping this day. Mother's necklace.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about. My father wants me to marry Coco.
Coco, but he's so serious.
I know. My father thinks it's the right path for me. But Grandmother Willow, what is my path? How am I ever going to find it?
Your mother asked me the very same question.
She did. What did you tell her?
I told her to listen. All around you are spirits, child. They live in the earth, the water, in the sky. If you listen, they will guide you.
I hear the wind.
Yes. What is it telling you?
I don't understand.
Pray, Dora, you will understand. Listen with your heart, you will understand.
Lots of things just happened in that little tiny scene. So first of all, she's supposed to marry the person that her father wants her to marry with her. She's fallen in love with this other guy. So all of a sudden, she's asking for this advice, and guess what? She says, listen to the spirits around you, they will guide you. And where did she say the spirits are found? Where? In the earth, in the water, in the wind, and in the sky. And she was meaning the stars, because earth, wind, fire, and guess what that is? That's straight up occultism. That's straight up satanic witchcraft, earth, wind, air, fire, spirit. And she sits there and sings a song. Ko-ko-ko-ku-um. How many of you know what that says? But you sit in there and you listen to it and it goes right over the top of your head because you don't realize that they just spit off occultism at you and you have no idea what was said to you. And you know what's really interesting about this? I was presenting this in Loma Linda in Southern California, and I get this phone call from this lady, and she says, I would like to interview you for my radio show. I used to work for the entertainment industry. I was involved in the makeup artist area, and she goes, I worked on many films, and I was a Wiccan. Wiccan is witchcraft, one of the fastest growing witchcrafts that's doing. And she said, I find it really interesting what your ministry is doing. Would you come on my radio show? And so I said, sure, why not? So I'm sitting there talking to her, and in between the commercials and stuff, we would be bantering back and forth. And she would say, you know what's really interesting when you go to the theater? She says, we do these Wiccan chants and things that are these certain, words and sentences that are said together. And she says, they say them in movies all the time. She said, I'd sit there in the movie thing, and I would go, oh, wow, they just said a whole Wiccan witchcraft thing. And so it came to the forefront of my mind, and I said, oh yeah, well what about this movie right here? And we started talking about this one, and she said, oh yeah, Earth, Wind, Air, Fire. That's totally a Wiccan teaching. Interesting. And you see, Walt Disney was long involved in the occult and in sorcerous material, and I don't have to stretch your imagination to understand that. But there's lots of things that are going on that, because you don't have the tolerance to sit there and watch it, you let your kids watch it, and you wonder why Wiccan is the fastest growing religion. 1 Timothy 4:1 says, some will give heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. We know this already. Leviticus 19:31 says, regard not them that have familiar spirits, and neither seek after them that have wizards to be defiled by them, for I am the Lord your God. In Cinderella, here, this is like Cinderella 2 or something, but here she's talking to the little mice, and listen to what she says about the rules and about the law.
I've been trying to obey someone else's rules about who I should be and how I should dress.
And so all of a sudden, right after this, she starts to sing this song, and this is what she sings. Who's to say that the rules must stay the same forevermore? Whoever made them had to change the rules that came before. So make your own way, show the beauty within when you follow your heart. There's no heart you can't win. This is repetition. And guess what? You learn best off of repetition. Over and over and over again. Follow your heart. Follow your heart. Don't follow the law. Follow your heart. Follow your heart. Don't follow the law. Follow your heart. Over and over and over again. And then all of a sudden, you see this in adult films and adult movies, such as Fight Club and all these other ones that we talked about the other night. And it's the same mentality, it's just the adult version of that. WALL-E. My heart just breaks to tell you this. I don't trust Walt Disney at all. So I find it very interesting. This is the movie poster to WALL-E. Does anyone notice anything interesting about the movie poster? He is in a 5-pointed, upside-down, circular situation. Before I even get into this movie, all you conspiracists out there, do you know what a pentagram is good for? Do you know why it is an important symbol to them? Because what it means is the manifestation of Satan's kingdom here on this earth. It literally is to the cross to the Christian, the pentagram is to the Satanist. It means this kingdom will be designed by him. So this is the movie poster. Now let's just say that, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. That's not what this is. Okay? let's analyze the movie. And then you tell me after we analyze the movie if this is actually what it is. So in the movie, it starts out with a picture of the world. This is the very opening scene. And it starts out with the sun. And as the camera pans through the galaxy, we notice that there is this destroyed world with all kinds of junk all over it. And the camera pans into this picture. Okay, it goes through all the junk. And it shows you on the world, everything is destroyed, and there's nothing on the planet except for this one thing called Wall-E. Let me know when your spiritual alarm bells are going off. Let me ask you this question. When on the history of the world from your Bible is there ever going to be a time where there is nothing on this planet, everything is destroyed, there is only one thing on this planet, and what is it? When Satan has to sit here and think of himself. And I go, where are you going with this, Walt Disney? Interesting way to start out a movie, wouldn't you think? And so if that is true, and if that is consistent, when Satan has to sit here and think for the 1,000 years by himself what he has done, where are all the human beings? Where are they? In heaven, in the sky, right? Well, guess where all the human beings are? In the sky, in a utopian paradise. Only this isn't just any utopian paradise. They're actually, now, occultists are never going to paint Christ or God or heaven in a proper light, right? So all of a sudden, in this utopian paradise where the temperature is always 72 degrees, it's perfect, everybody's walking in lines, another representation of heaven, only everybody's fat. Because if you ask somebody who doesn't want to go to heaven, would you ever want to go to heaven? No. Why? It would be boring. I would get fat just sitting there doing nothing all the time. So they're misrepresenting heaven, but here's how this whole story plays out. So Wall-E, let's go back to Earth. Okay? Wall-E's sitting on Earth thinking about what he's done the whole time. Now, the human beings are waiting to go back to Earth. Guess what we're going to do in heaven when we're up there for the 1,000 years? We're waiting to come back to Earth, right? So this has to stay consistent with the story if this is truly a parallel. And all of a sudden, the humans send out this thing who's ironically called Eva, or another play on the words Eve. And he falls in love with Eva. And when Eva finds that life can be sustained on Earth because Wall-E takes her back to his apartment and he shows her a little plant here, and all of a sudden, that's her key to go back and tell the humans that it's okay to go back to the planet Earth, right? So she shuts down, she gets sent back to the ship, and Wall-E catches a ride. Now think about this. You have this soul dirty little robot who's going into this pristine, clean, new environment for the very first time, and the camera pans up to Axiom, the name of the ship. So as a good little student watching the movie, I went to Axiom, or I went to dictionary.com and said, I wonder what the word axiom means. And here's what I found. Axiom means a self-evident truth that requires no proof. It is a universally accepted principle, rule, or can we say law? So you have all the human beings that are in this environment that is known as a universal truth. You know, heaven is 100% truth. And there needs to be no proof up there in heaven, and it's run by a principle or a rule or a law. So that's what the human beings are in. That's the name of the ship. This is obviously a representation of heaven. So as Wall-E gets brought into this environment for the very first time, he is checked by all these little robots. Notice how they follow the guiding light, and they wait for the guiding light to tell them when they can proceed forward. These are all simple, tiny little psychological tricks they're using. Everybody's online. Nobody gets offline. And as they scan each one of these little robots, Wall-E is accidentally grabbed in order to be scanned too. So as he's cleaning everything, because they don't want any contaminations, it says 100% contaminated. Who is 100% contaminated? Satan is 100% contaminated. So as this 100% contaminated being comes into this environment for the first time, this little cleaner robot tries to clean him to no avail. Now, of course, he's not playing along, so the cops are called. Notice how everybody's following in lines, okay? And here he's sitting there, like, trying to detain Wall-E and clean him, but it's just to no avail. Now, as he's being cleaned, notice how they take Eva in the background across the floor, okay? So Wall-E, of course, being in love with Eva, wants to follow and chase after Eva. So he sees her, he goes cutting straight across the floor because he doesn't know you're supposed to walk in line, or he doesn't walk in line. And this little cleaner robot, who it's his job to clean, looks at this dirt. It's his job to clean it, and he thinks about, he's never been off the line before. So he thinks about the consequence of getting off the line. He looks there, and here's the indoctrination. He steps out of line, and there's no consequence to him stepping out of line. And so now, all of a sudden, he continues to move forward with his cleaning. These are subtle, psychological things that are being planted into people's minds. And so the whole movie takes a turn. Now, all of a sudden, guess what? Chaos starts to happen in this perfect environment. And now everybody that is affected by Wally and his buddies, Wally then gets quarantined, okay? So he gets sent to this thing that looks like a psychiatric ward about all of these different things that won't do what they're told to do. What I find is a parallel of that is, guess who else was quarantined for not doing what he was told to do? And everybody else with him. And so all of a sudden, Wally, in this quarantined environment, thinks that they're hurting Eva, and he's totally in love with her. So he grabs her arm. They're now let out of the thing, and all of a sudden, all these chaotic machines are running around as if they have no rules or laws. Notice how they don't walk in line, and notice how all of the police are in line, and they hail Wally as their hero. So as a full-on rebellion breaks out on the ship, notice how there's like now violence and shooting and all this kind of stuff happening. Notice this little cleaner robot. Do you notice how he's now dirty? He's now jumped sides. He's now on their side. And so he's no longer clean, and he's no longer gonna clean what he was designed to do. He's got a new function now, and it's something else. And so now, notice, at the end of this whole thing, enough rebellion breaks out to where they actually go back to planet Earth. What's interesting about this is notice what color everybody's wearing. Red. Do you know what color they started out with? Blue. Do you know why that's important? What does blue signify in the Bible? The law. And we get that from Joshua. Okay? So remember the Hebrews were supposed to put a little rim of blue around them to remind them of the law. And red is often used as the sign of rebellion. So all of a sudden, they go back to Earth and they rebuild Earth. Now, what is wrong with that? When I first saw this, I was like, okay, what's wrong with rebuilding the Earth, right? But if you look at this in the spiritual context, isn't it us that rebuild this Earth? No, it's God that rebuilds the Earth. See, what Satan tells all the occult people that are really seriously involved in the occult, I mean, I often question, like, have they not heard of the Bible and how this whole thing plays out? Don't they know they're losing? But guess what? Satan has duped them to believe that they will rebuild this Earth as they see fit. And that's what they're fighting so hard for. Megamind. When this movie came out, I asked a few people that had seen it, that hadn't seen our presentation, and I said, did you notice anything spiritual about this? And a few people kind of raised their hand and said, oh, I don't know, but watch this. Here is the same similar theme as the Great Controversy, okay? The story starts out with a war in the galaxy, okay? And this war in the galaxy forces them to send this character down to Earth. Notice the little lightning bolt on his chest. There's a reason for that. And
turns out another family in the Glaucon quadrant had a very similar idea. That was the day I met Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, and our glorious rivalry was born.
okay, so here's what's going on. There's a war in the galaxy, and two people are sent down to Earth. One of them, Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, who doesn't do anything wrong, and he's ordained in gold, okay? And guess what? Mr. Goody Two-Shoes arrives on, so who is this? Jesus, right? Mr. Goody Two-Shoes arrives on Christmas. Now, the other guy, Megamind, he arrives at the, so who is this? Satan, right? Okay, so you have Christ versus Satan right here. Now, in this whole thing, you basically have good versus evil.
One would be cheer.
Happy Metro Man Day, Metro City.
And I love you, random citizen.
While the other
Table for two.
was feared.
What?
So that's seems a lot like consistent with what's going on in our world. People adore Christ. They even name a day after him. It's called Christmas Day. And all of a sudden, they're saying now here, this is that hero day or whatever. Okay? So, moving on, your fight between good and evil is your basic plotline story, but it takes a twist in the center of the movie. Okay? Who the loser, which is basically the Satan character, always loses. Guess what he's doing? What did it look like he was doing right there? Walking on water. Another reference to Christ. Okay? So guess what? All of a sudden, Christ, or the character that's playing Christ, doesn't want to save the human race anymore. So guess who has to step up and be the savior?
A new threat has come to Metro City.
Consider yourselves under new management.
And Metro Man is nowhere to be found.
He'll destroy the whole city.
I'm sorry, I'm finally agreed to get in touch with Mike Screwball, making awesome music.
You're kidding, right?
The world needs a hero.
You need to be that guy.
Well, this is a strange turn of events.
He will answer the call.
So now he's got to step up and answer the call to be the savior and the hero of the world.
The world needs.
And all of a sudden, it's your basic good versus evil. They even tell you that in the trailer. Battle between good versus evil will blow your mind. And listen to these two songs that are played right here.
I make bad look so good. DreamWorks Megamind.
You're kidding, right?
So what two songs were just mixed together there? Highway to Hell and I'm Loving You. Highway to... What? We went through subliminal advertising and subliminal things the other day. Do you know that that's not a mistake? And you notice how he said, I make bad look so good? Flipping the great controversy around. Over and over and over again. And some of these guys that are doing this, Will Ferrell and Brad Pitt, those are two of the most popular names out there. These guys are huge. And all of a sudden, people follow it and listen to it. SpongeBob SquarePants. Not SpongeBob. Can I tell you something? I enjoy a good laugh. I really do. I can barely sit through 10 seconds of this thing. It's so mindless. And so many people love this show. And here I just want to point something out to you that's very interesting about SpongeBob. Most adults, and when I mean most adults probably can't sit through too long of this kind of stuff. So what you do is you place your kids in front of it and you walk away. You go clean the kitchen or you go do whatever you want, right? Now here's the kind of content that slips through to your kids that you are completely unaware of that it slips to. Did you know that they had a bunch of episodes where they go through all these Masonic rituals? Yep, you've seen these?
I would like to call this meeting of the Good Neighbor Lodge to order. Let's begin with roll call. Patrick. By the all-seeing eye, ye the worthy, we are not.
What are you two doing? Secret ritual.
Doing over at you as president.
Me, president of Bikini Bottom? Not silly. Not the president of Bikini Bottom.
You're the president of the Secret Royal Order of the Good Neighbor Lodge.
What? Is this some you two made up?
It's a secret.
What? Really? That's the kind of content that we need to tell the children? And here's another thing. When I gave this presentation at the GYC for the very first time, one of the guys that, he has a ministry called Beehive Ministry. His name is Rico Hill. I don't know if you guys have heard of Beehive. It's all medical evangelism. Beautiful, beautiful ministry. Love this guy to death. You can check him out. He used to actually work for SpongeBob SquarePants. He was a high-up executive where they would actually bring him all the storyboards, and he had to self-check off on this. And he came back and he said, oh boy, you're barely scratching the surface. These guys are truly dark, and they're truly a mess. And it's amazing how many times they would have to send them back to the drawing board and be like, take that out, take that thing in the background out, take the sexual reference out, take this out. And they were constantly trying to to like get these guys to write cleaner content, and he said, you're barely scratching the surface. So is this really a isolated experience? Here they are at a total, a different type of Masonic ritual, and here they are in brotherhood outfits and everything, and this is an initiation ceremony.
Did you follow me here? Squidward! For thousands of years, no outsiders have witnessed this sacred initiation. You desecrated the sanctity of this lodge.
Wow, not really kids content, huh? There was another one that actually shocked me terribly, and when I saw this, I actually thought it was a joke, and I did a lot of research on this to make sure that this wasn't a joke, and there's tons of people on the internet, on YouTube, that were videoing their television screens to show you this is not a joke. But here's SpongeBob watching pornography.
Just looking for the sports channel, Gary.
Come on, what else could that be? You got some bounce music in there. He wants to change the channel real quick. That's not kids' content. Be careful what you put your kids in front of. You wonder why pornography has just ripped through our nation, and ripped through our churches, and ripped through so much. Because this kind of stuff slides in at all different levels. How about Tom and Jerry? When I saw this, I was quite shocked by it too.
What's this?
Well, from the looks of things, sir, I'd say they're here to audition for the remaining slot in the Fabulous Super Race.
Is this some kind of a joke? A pussycat and a mouse? This show's about crazy stunts and people putting their lives at risk for a big fat prize. It's not a nature documentary. Oh, then call security and have these...
Sir, it's... This always gives you the creeps, sir.
He's the president of Hollywood. He's supposed to give you the creeps.
Greetings, your kinsliness, imperious leader of Hollywood.
What? Wasn't this show really about a cat and a mouse? Wow. They've gotten kind of away from that, huh? I mean, all-seeing eyes and all this kind of stuff that's in the background. I mean, really, they're slowing this stuff down. I mean, I could stand here and really do a whole presentation on the just junk like that that's placed in the background, in the storylines, and it just keeps going and going. Even now more so when you get to the adults. Here's the